Okay, good morning. So we are doing today Taanit daf Vav, but we still have some with the chop on the Testament base. So the Gemara about halfway down says, Tanya, Amr Rabbi Elazar ben Porta. Rabbi Elazar ben Porta said, Miyam Shachar Beis Hamikdash Nasa Geshamim Tzimukin La'ilam. Remember how I said in Brachas that um, that sometimes in the Gemara you have the name of a memra given by the person who you can easily associate with, it's easy to remember, and many times it doesn't work out, but sometimes it's very cute, and clearly that's not an accident. You have a Rebbe Avshalom saying over a word about Avshalom is a no-brainer. Here you have a word from Elazar ben Porta. Porta in Aramaic means a little. What does Elazar ben Porta say? Miyam Shachar Beis Hamikdash, from the time when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Naaseh Gesham Tzimukin Laham, there became very little rain. Right, so it's easy to remember that who says over this memra. Yeah, yesh shana shegishmer merubin. You have certain years where there's a lot of rain. Yesh shana shegishmer mu'atan, and you have certain years where there's a very little rain. But I guess what it means is the world over. Once there was no more Beis Hamikdash, even if there's certain areas that are getting more rain, it nevertheless on the world scale, there's more drought. There's more situations where there's missing rain. Yesh shana shegeshmer yardim bismana, v'yesh shana she'en geshmer yardim bismana. You have certain places where they're going to have the rain fall out in the right time, and other places where the rain will fall, but it will not fall in the right time. Like we said yesterday, the Gemara Rosh Hashanah says Zayin, essentially Hashem could, just because Rosh Hashanah is the Yom Adin, doesn't mean, like the Gemara says earlier in Zayin Amud Aleph, doesn't mean that there isn't the Yom Adin every single day. There's always Yom Adin, there's always judgments going on. And essentially a person needs to be, always doing good. It's not like, oh, Rosh Hashanah, I did good, so now I have what's called a whole pass to do all the bad things I want to do for the rest. No, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. So, because if you do, then of course Hashem could change it as you go along throughout the year. All right. So that's the Gemara. So Shana Shegishmer Yardim is Mana in a year where the rain is falling appropriately. Lamaudaima. What is that comparable to? Le'eved shenasan le'rabbi parnasasai be'echad b'Shabbos. It's like a master who gives his servant his sustenance on Sunday. So if you get your paycheck at a normal time, so then nimseis isa nefes ketikna v'nechalas ketikna, then you're going to be able to eat your meals appropriately. You have enough time to bake. You have enough time to cook. Everything's going to be appropriate. But if shana she'engish yardim is manan l'mao daima, what is if you have a year where the rain didn't come at the appropriate time? Then what's that comparable to? Levish nasan rabbi parnasas be'erev Shabbos. It's like a person who got his paycheck, mamash at the end of the month, and he has no time. He has to run, run, run. So nimtzeis isa nefesh shalei ketikna, v'nechol shalei ketikna. It's going to end up having a dough that was not able to rise in the appropriate way. He's going to have not be able to eat in the appropriate way. Didn't have time to cook. Remember, we already talked before, right? How many times we mentioned already that when's the right time to go shopping? Was Thursday. They went Thursday because Friday didn't have enough time. So if you're getting your paycheck, mamash, at the end of the week, you don't have enough time to go shopping and everything prepared in a normal way. Yeah. So Shana Shegesh Merubin Lamaudaima. What is a year where the rains are plentiful? What does that compare to? It's like the master gave him the parnasa at one time, so he gave him the check, a big check at the beginning. So now he's able to appropriately go and buy whatever supplies he needs and appropriately prepare it. So what happens? So the rechaim, the grinder, right, would grind the same amount from the core as it would from the kav. In other words, we mean this in terms of wastage, right? Whenever you're going to have a mill grinding something, right? So when the mill grinds something, there's some part that goes to waste. That's by definition. If you grind a lot at one time, so you'll have amount that goes to waste. It is what it is. But if you have a little that goes at one time, that's still going to be waste And then if you have to do it repeatedly, that's all each time going to have a little bit of waste. So best to do it all at one time so you get the waste to be as minimal as possible. You can control for that, right? The way I think about it is whenever you make a cake, right? People here I know don't suffer from this, but I certainly enjoy used to licking from the spatula. Right? When I would make a cake, or my mother make a cake, I would say, "Can I have the spatula?" Right? Why? Why? Because you can't like my mother would be like, like try to like use every bit of it. No, but there's always something left. So if you imagine you're making 10 cakes with 10 different spatulas, each one's going to have some on it. But if you make 10 cakes with one spatula, right? Then by definition, you have cut down the waste. So if you're cooking all at one time, you have enough flour to go around to make a lot of challah, so you have way less waste than you would if each time you get a check, you get a small check in the mail, you can go out and buy some wheat, make some dough, make a challah. So each time you're going to have waste. So essentially, the idea is that you're able to prep appropriately, you're going to be able to cut down on the waste. Benin says, you'll be able to eat with the minimum amount of wastage from a core, from a large amount, the same way it would be from a small amount. You'll be able to make the waste very minimal. Now, the reverse, right? What if we have a year where there's mamish very little rain? What do you compare that to? It's like a master who gave the parnasa, but he didn't give it beravach, he gave it b'tzimtzum, he gave very little. So in that situation, so what is it comparable to? So he never has enough time to go out and make one big production of like cake or challah or whatever. He has to go each time when he has enough money to go buy some more wheat, to go make some more cake, to make some more challah. That means each time he's going to end up having a little bit to waste. The same amount that he has of waste that he's going to have from one little production of a challah, he's going to have each time he goes out. Why? Because he didn't get nice check from the master. He's only getting small piecemeal, itty bitty. So he's like hand to mouth. Every time he has enough, he can go buy something to go make something. But every time he makes something, he's going to have a little bit of waste. So you're really maximizing the amount of waste, which is unfortunate because you have somebody who literally can't afford that. Yeah. So nimtzis is the commotion achelas menakor, achelas menakav. Again, the same idea that what you would end up having in terms of waste from a kav, you end up having the same thing from each time you're making. So the core ends up having a lot more waste than it could have otherwise had. All right. So now the Gemara gives another sort of metaphor to understand what we're talking about. And for this, if you remember, if you've ever been to one of these recreation sites in America, like the colonial recreation sites in Israel, also have, these kind of places where they make pottery, right? Where they make, you see them playing with the clay and all that. So that's how this one is, right? The key factor there when they're playing around with the clay is they have to have a lot of water to be able to manipulate the clay. So there's nothing more. Another way to understand this is Bishman Shekish Merubin, when there's a lot of rain, Lamaudaim. What do you compare that to? La'adam Shemigavel Asatit. So a person is kneading the clay. If he has a lot of water, and kal, right? So if he has a lot of water, Mayim and kal, Vatit Megubal Yafa. So then it's enough to manipulate the clay into whatever it is that you want, and it gets done well. But if you don't have enough water, right, everything will harden. It will simply not be enough to go around. So then Mayim Kalim, the water is going to be gone. It's not going to be molded appropriately. It's not going to be molded correctly. And so the Gemara concludes over here by essentially giving us a couple of metaphors to understand the idea that when there's a lot of rain, it's like getting your paycheck, getting paid in advance, getting a big paycheck, not a situation where your mom's hand to mouth. Every time you don't have anything, you have to run to the master and say, "Can I get another handout?" Fine. And like I said, I think a key way to remember it is Veleza ben Porta. Porta again in Aramaic can mean a little. So yeah. Fine. So that's the Gemara over here. We're up to the Tanarab Banan, about 10 lines up from the bottom of the page here on your Testament page. Tanarab Banan. Here we have the rest. All of this Gemaras today are all Agadata Gemaras. And today we have a very famous story, a story of Nagdim Ben Gurion. I'm not going to have time today, but maybe tomorrow I'll deal with the very interesting question of how literally do we take these stories. Um, it's a bit of a controversial topic, but maybe I'll spend a few minutes just to give you the background on that. But for today, we just have to run through the Gemara. And tomorrow we have a decent amount of Agada the Gemara as well, which will take us some time, but maybe we'll spare some time just to run through this sugya a bit. Okay, so that's the Gemara. Tana Rabbana, Pam Achas Olu Kol Yisrael L'Ragel Yerushalayim. Once all of the Jewish people came to be Ola Regel. Again, all of the Jewish people coming to be Ola Regel was not a requirement, right? So I don't know the Shemidak, the Gemara that it's taking place by Sukkot. Sukkot is the only time when everybody was required to be Ola Regel, right? By Hakel, not a regular Sukkot, but a Hakel Sukkot, right? 7 years. Hakel, so Anashmas, Ataf, everyone had to come. On the regular Oila Regel, only the men had to go. Yeah, so Tana Rabbanan, Pamachas al Kol Yisrael, all the Jewish people came to be Oila Regel. There was simply not enough water to drink. Halach Nagdim Ben Gurion, Eitzel Adin Echad. So Nagdim Ben Gurion went to one person. Some versions of the Gemara has Hegmoin, right? Meaning he wasn't a Jewish person. A Jewish person, presumably would have been happy to try to, spear this, but okay, wasn't a Jew. And so he went to him and said, please let me borrow 12 Mayanos Mayim. Mayan is a spring, an underground spring. Everyone who's been to Yerushalayim, if you ever have a chance, it is 100% worthwhile if you haven't done it, to do the Davidson Center, which is right nearby, and over there you can go through Chizkiyo water tunnel, right, which is Mayan, right, the Gichon spring. It's a Mayan. It's basically a Mayan that's been transformed into a lazy river, tunnel 3,000 years ago, or whatever, 2,800 years ago, deep, like literally hundreds of feet into the rock. It's unbelievable feat. This was done when the whole Ashur was attacking. We were talking about Ashur. What was it? Yesterday, 2 days ago. I forget now. So there are springs throughout Eretz Yisrael, right? And you can actually go swimming in many of these springs. They're unbelievable. I don't know that there were 12 today around Yerushalayim. I'm not aware of them. So I've always a little bit bothered by the Gemara, like technically, geographically, where are these 12 springs? I'm aware of one. I don't know what the other 12 are, but it could also very well be that simply in those times there were many more springs around, and presumably they've dried up, etc. So at that time there were 12 springs, and he asks them to lend them to him in order to benefit the earlier Gaon. And this person obviously is not a Jewish person, doesn't feel any need to provide them of his own volition. Either I'm going to return back to you 12 springs. In other words, I'm not sure this is like a situation like he's not charging me interest. Like, what do you mean? He's letting you have all the water, right? Because the lashon he's giving him is halveni. Let me borrow it. Right? This is what I want. This is a Jewish person. He's not. He's saying, I want an interest-free loan. I'm going to provide you back the amount of water for these springs that you would otherwise have. Because they're going to get diminished if everybody drinks from them. I guess they're not such normal springs, or they're not like always filled up with water. So if it's going to be drunk, then we have to be able to replenish it. So he says, I'm going to replenish it for you. Right, but if I'm replenishing for you the same amount of water that I borrowed from you, that means I'm loaning from you without interest. So it could be then as a Jewish person, you don't say Hegman. Maybe it really means Adin, just some guy. Again, I'm not 100% clear, but it certainly seems, at least from this indication, that maybe he was trying to do an interest-free loan. However, look at what he then says. If I don't give it back to you, then I'm going to give you, for the 12 springs, I'm going to give you 12 talents of silver. I'm going to give you 12 bars of silver. Right? So what is that? Right? Is that equal to the value of the 12 ma'ayanos or not? I assume it's to my mind, if the rain is plentiful, these things will eventually be filled back up. Mayanos are underground springs. They get water from, the water that evaporates into the ground and eventually comes down, etc. So, I don't know. Is this interest or is this what the cost would be? Not clear to me from the Gemara. But anyhow, this is what he promises him. If I don't get you back the water in your cisterns and your mayanos filled back up, then I'm going to give you 12 bars of silver. The Kabbalah man, and they agree on a specific date when this is going to all take place. Kevin Shiki Naval Yer the Gershom B'Shachris. So on that day come about, there's still no rain by the day. Shalach Shigali Mayim Moist. No time to give me the money or the water. I either have money, and look at the lashon of the Gemara. I wonder about this girsa of saying hegmoin, right? He says, I have money by you, meaning I borrowed money from you, right? It sounds like it's almost equal, right? Yeah. So shalach le'adayin yeshizman kalayim kulei shalius. Akim says, stop bugging me. I got a long day here. He's very confident that he still has time. But Sarayim shalach le'adayin. In the afternoon, he then writes him again, says, "No, Shigli Amayim Amayis." He says, I have money that's holding by you. Give me back the money. He says, I still have time. Again, by mincha, he says to him, send me water or money that I'm holding by you. I still have time. Now, I just want to take a pause here for a second. If you remember back in Brachas, we talked about those who mispalim the Dumei. If you remember over there, we talked about the Dumei the ideal time for davening was in terms of the sun, in terms of the chakras, was with the sun. So those are the Vasikin, they wake up early to daven. And we said there's also the Dumei by the evening. And it sounded like from Rashi, that is and we know that this is a machlokes and Mishanim, etc. When is the ideal time to daven? Is the ideal time to daven mincha earlier in the day or later in the day? Now, you could say maybe the ideal time to daven is later in the day, but there's an idea of reason. The reason might give the mitzvahs. You never know. You might get stuck on a call. You might not be busy. It's a short winter day. Daven as early as possible. Mincha gedela. I'm not getting into that technical aspect of it, because that could very well be that as a practical matter, a person should daven mincha as early as possible so as not to lose it. But l'maisa, if you have a normal mincha ma'ariv kind of a situation, then clearly that would not be impacted if you go in a normal way to a normal place where you are always doing mincha ma'ariv. So maybe that's not an issue. But I want to focus on the more fundamental aspect, which is what's mincha? Is mincha ideally mincha gedolah? Forget the practical applications of it in a person's life in the short winter, whatever. Is mincha gedolah the ideal mincha? Or is mincha tana the ideal mincha? What is this Gemara mashma? This Gemara is clearly mashma that there's something called sarayim, and then there's mincha. Mincha is mashma what? Late in the afternoon, after the sarayim. So I see this Gemara as a clear raya to Rashi. Rashi says in Brachas there that is the ideal type of mincha is mincha tana. And it seems from this Gemara, it's a clear raya to Rashi. Yeah? All right. I should know the Rashash doesn't say this, but the hint that I got from looking at the Rashash here hint to me to remind me about this Gemara. Fine. So the Gemara, so this master, he's like laughing. He's like, I got money in the bank. This is great. This, to me, this idea of ligleg is when you make fun. When you're making fun of somebody. So the idea that he's making fun of him, again, that gives me pause. Maybe he's not a Jew. Like, why is he making fun? He thinks he's getting a good deal. This person didn't take the water for himself. He took the water for the Jewish people. If he was a Jewish person, okay, maybe he's owed the money, but to be ligleg, to be laughing at him, that seems to me, again, maybe the gear says more hegmon. He's not really Jewish. Again, I'm not 100% clear. But the lashon of ligleg is he's like laughing at his misfortune, which he didn't do for anything for himself in that demon. He did it literally for the Jewish people. Yeah. So the fact that he has mamash no rachmanis on him, that gives me again more inkling to say it's probably the hegman is the right gear. So it's not a Jewish person. Yeah. So ligleg lavaisa adan amar kol shana kula yardi gesham. Now we turn the page to Chaf Aleph. So he says the whole year the rain never fell. The akshav yardi geshamim. Really? Come on. So Nichnas Beis HaMerchatz b'simcha. He comes into the Adon, goes into the Beis HaMerchatz b'simcha. Mamish, he's like, what's it called? I'm making bank. right? He's like, I am going to be super successful. This is great. Wow, and this language over here, I love this. This is movie language, right? This essentially is the Gemara's way of in a narrative form, doing what is nobody here probably wasted their time with James Joyce and Ulysses. I'm not recommending it, but that is essentially the same idea where he's attempting to give you through a book form what you can get in a movie. In a movie, you could have like a split screen, right? You can watch this, you can watch that, you can see as something's happening, something else is happening. This is what the Gemara is saying here. Look at the lashon. Ad sha'adan nichnas b'simchas v'sameros. Just as the Adon is coming with such happy and glee into the bathhouse, he's going to take himself a nice hot bath. He's going to enjoy himself. He knows he's going to have his big money coming in. He's coming into the Beis Hamikdash very sad. This is a very interesting halachic Gemara and Shabbos on Yud, right? And one of the ways that they would have hither covered for davening was being nisatev. Right? What's it mean nisatev? We today are nisatev for the talis, but they in those days, many people did not wear head coverings. Nisatev could have been a head covering. I'm not getting into that now. It's a very fascinating topic. All of it's very fascinating. But for our purposes now, you see the split screen. He's walking into the Beis Hamikdash, the Simcha. He's walking into the Beis Hamikdash, the Atzivos, right? He's walking in very sad. So Nisadev Amar Tefillah Amar Lefanav Rebbeinu Shalom Golav Yadu Alafanecha Shaloi Lechvod Yasisi V'Loi Lechvod Beis Abba Asisi. I didn't do this for myself. I didn't do this for the honor of my house. El Lechvod Asisi. I did it for you. Sheyu Mayim Mitzayin Lo'el Regalim. So that there should be water. Matzui for the people who are the regal. Right? We know. What do we know? The Gemara tells them Hashanah, right? That the people who were seeing at the time, this is before the Hillel 2 calendar. So the people would see the moon, right? So they wanted to come and give testimony. Now, obviously, it's a clear night. A lot of people saw the moon, right? So what happened? One time, Rabbi Kiva was akif them in Lud. Remember Lud? We just had Lud, right? You had the Haruge Lud, right? Today we have the airport. Yeah, I think I once told you about the guy from Shevet Dan. Told me somehow he thought Lud was the Shevet Dan, but that's a whole other topic. Yeah. So we got to what we were just talking about, the other Regalim. Yeah. So they come to Beis Hamikdash, and he's davening Hashem. I didn't do this for my own covet. I'm doing this for you. So the Rosh Hashanah tells us that Mekiva once had a whole pack of Edom. I don't remember 40 peers. I forget now. They all came along like they all saw the moon like it was a cloudless night. Everyone saw the moon. And he was like, okay, we seriously, guys, we appreciate it, but you can all go back home. And Gamliel sent him a message that don't do that. Don't do that. You know why? Because you stop them now, they're not coming back. Why they're not going to come back? Because it's not. Rabbi Kiva said it's okay. We don't have to do it. There's always going to be other people. And guess what? There's going to be one time when it's not going to be so clear and happens to be one group saw it. And maybe that group has a psul in their edus. And maybe, only a couple people saw it. And we're not going to be able to make Kaddish Kodesh at the appropriate time. So don't do it. Let everybody come. And in fact, what are Gamliel Institute? Everybody's there. And what happened? He asked everybody a little question. What did you see? He already has the Edom. He already has everything. He asked every peer. So tell them, what did you see? Makes everybody feel like they're wanted, like they're needed. And what will that ensure? They'll come back again. So what happens over here? These people, remember, it was Nicholas with Kol Yisrael. Everybody was here. And there's not enough water to drink? You think people are going to come back? No one's going to come back. So Dimar Gura said, I didn't do this so I get a plaque in the Beis Hamikdash. I did it so that you, Rebbeinu Shalom, should be honored, that people should come back in the future. They shouldn't be turned off from the other regal. So miyad niskashu shemayim ba'ovim. Mamish, the clouds filled up with the clouds. The sky filled up with clouds. Mamish, the waters were coming down, pouring until it filled up all the mayans, all those 12 springs, all those cisterns there. You had to be paid back with full. It was all paid back. And there was even extra, right? It was even extra. Again, the split screen. As he's coming out of the Beis Hamikdash, he's now very happy. The Adon is coming out of the Beis Hamikdash. When they met up, because of course they had to meet up. Amaloi, Tainli Demei Mayim, Yosef, Shiesh to be honest. Agdima can't resist. And Agdima says to him, no, I think you should pay me extra for the extra water that you got, because you're Maya no, so you're paid back way more than we even borrowed. So Keshapagu said, was that Amaloi, Tainli Demei Mayim, Yosef, Shiesh to be honest? He says, I think you owe me some money, no? So Amar Loi says the Adon to Nakdiman, I know that God is only sort of beat up on his world for you. Ella, Adayin but I still have a particular case against you. You know why? That I can't claim my money from you because the sun already set. And you know what? We're a stickler here. This is called in legalese, time of the essence clause. I said on this day, it was very important to me on this day, and sorry, we go by the end of the sun being the end of the day, and I guess this again another right that this guy is sort of a Jew, maybe. He's like, the day's over. Sorry, you got to pay me. I mean, you got to pay me, really? Like technical like this? Come on. Again, it doesn't sound like a yid to make such a technical argument, but nevertheless. So he says, the son already said, "Ugisham b'Rishus Yadu," and this is my reign. It's all coming to me. It's not nothing to do with you. So Chazav Dechas Beis Hamikdash, this Pischein Peh that this other is suggesting sounds like it's serious that he's going to take him to court. So he went back to the Beis Hamikdash. Nis Atif again. He's remapping himself. It's clear to me, Hashem, that that you can make obviously miracles. Please show him that you have people that are beloved to you in this world. Miyad nispazu av mizarcha chama. So the clouds moved away and the sun shone through. Now remember the Gemara in Brachas. We had a Gemara there that talked about the people that they davened on Erev Shabbos. They davened on Shabbos by Erev Shabbos. Why? Because they thought not ideally. In other words, some Rav, for example, the Gemara told us he davened there Shabbos on Erev Shabbos. He made Shabbos early, made early Shabbos. But sometimes it happened that they weren't intending to make early Shabbos. And Murray over there said, but Abaya, that somebody, went and davened Shal Shabbos, Be'er Shabbos. They thought it was Shabbos ready because it was dark. But it turned out that it was sunny. So one time he could still do work. I'm not getting into, can you work after Chatzais and this is not the topic. So Abaya said, yeah, effectively, we're not intending to Mekabel. So such a thing is possible, but would you have to daven again or not, etc. All of this, not for the moment, but over there, the Gemara is Mako for a Tzibur versus a Yachin. It's not our topic, but for our purposes here, is this story, when you read this now, we're going to see in a moment that the Gemara clearly understood it, that this is a miracle. In other words, what's the miracle here? Is the miracle here that it was really daylight, but mamish was pouring so much that it became dark, and that darkness sounded like it was nighttime? And so now he comes to the Beis Hamikdash and he's davening. Hashem, show him that you have ahuvim in this world. So nispazu ha'avim, the clouds go away and the sun is shining as it was. As the sun is setting in mincha time, it's still a sun. It's still day. Or are we saying that it was dark already, and as it were, Hashem brought back the sun? I'm already giving you my hint as to tomorrow, but I just, you hear the point, yes? From this lashon over here, what do you see? Miyad nispazu av mizor chachama. The clouds moved away, the sun shone through. What does it sound like? Sounds like it wasn't yet sunset and Hashem brought back the sun. But bear that in mind when we go to the next Gemara. Yeah. So it continues the Gemara. If not for the fact that the sun broke through, I would have mamish had a case against you. I could have taken my money from you. That's the Gemara. His name was Buni. Nakdiman. And why is it called Nakdiman? Shenekadra Chamabavur, because the sun broke through for him. Nakdiman is a sort of a reference to breaking through, and here the sun broke through for Nakdiman, a special miracle. There are three people for whom the sun broke through. Moshe, Yeshua ben Akdim ben Gurin. Moshe, Yeshua and Akdim ben Gurin. What's the story? Bishlam Akdim ben Gurin Gemara. Right, Bishlam, the story of Akdim ben Gurin is our Gemara. We have it. Yeshua Nami Kara Yeshua is the situation of a pasuk. Why? When he was going to fight, Yeshua said, Shemesh, Shemesh begivain daim, v'areach be'emek ayalain. Right, the Shemesh in Givon should stop, and the Areach and Emek Ayalon should stop. So that is to say, it will give me more daylight hours to go pursue my enemies. And what did the pasuk respond to Yeshua's plea? Vayidai Mashemesh, the Areach Aman, right? The Shemesh stopped and the moon stopped. They each stopped. So since they stopped, now Yeshua had more time to go fight the enemies. They didn't have what's it called? The soldiers have today. They see in the night. They didn't have the what's that called? The satellite vision. Night. They didn't have night vision. So he needed the sun to stay up in order to be able to keep on chasing. And that's what happened. So what do you see from here? What is the Gemara's clear understanding? Is that the sun is able to sort of stop in the sky. The moon is able to stop in the sky. Yeah, so think about how that can be comparable to the situation in like Dimai. Yeah. The last case is Moshe Rabbeinu. Ela Moshe Minolan. What's the story of Moshe Rabbeinu? And then we get something very interesting. The background of this is that the Gemara doesn't say anything over here. But in Navi we find that Elisha, period, not Elisha ben Avuya. That's Acher, or Chagiga Tesvav, like I don't know what I'm talking about. But Elisha, plain Elisha, the student of Elio. So Elisha, right? Elisha is a good example. Elisha, right? Hashem answered me, right? Hashem answers his tefillah. But Elisha says to Elio, before Elio goes away, so he says, I would like to do everything that you did in life, but double. Whatever you did, I want to do double. So whatever Nisim Elio did, he does double. And it's an unbelievable gift. Elio gives him such a gift, and that's why you see many of the stories replicated, duplicated, etc. But what would be the normal assumption? The normal assumption is that the master is greater than the student. Right? So if the student does something, then what do you expect? The master should for sure have been able to do it. Right? That's the Gemara's leading assumption here. If Yeshua the son stopped, then for sure must have stopped Moshe. So we're starting out from that assumption that by definition, Elisha asking Elio to have double it's an unbelievable mirror. It's like it's totally out of the ordinary. Normally, the master is going to be a lot greater than the student. If Yeshua had such a miracle, it must be Moshe Rabbeinu had such a miracle. I never mentioned anyone in Chumash. No worries. So how do we find it in the Chumash? The Gemara doesn't give you a story exactly where it is. The Gemara just gives you proofs as to how it must have for sure have been the case by Yeshua as well. Zot the Gemara. So Amar Ablezer, Asi Achel Achel, Ksiv Achel Achel Teis Pachlecham, Uksiv Hasam Achel Gadlecha, right? Gadelcha, I'm sorry. By Moshe Rabbeinu, it says Achel Teis Pachlecham. So it says it's going to be your fear on the people is going to be great, and by Yeshua it says Achel Gadelcha. So you see Achel. So therefore, if Yeshua was great, Moshe Rabbeinu was also great. So it must have also the sun stopped him. Taste. You could learn Xer Shav from taste. So again, the taste by Moshe and the taste by Yeshua tells you again that whatever miracle had my Yeshua in terms of the sun had my Moshe as well. He says I can see from the goof of the pasuk itself. The Jewish people are going to be scared. The nations are going to be scared. I'm sorry. Of you, when are they going to be scared of you? When were they actually scared of Moshe Rabbeinu? They were scared of Moshe Rabbeinu when the sun stopped for him. So the same way the sun stops for Yeshua, we see the sun also stopped for Moshe. We didn't have it in any pasuk either. Xer Shava Achal Achal taste. Or Migu for the pasuk says again, the word chel here also, but nevertheless, the fact that they were scared of Moshe is why they were scared. They were scared because Moshe was able to, as it were, to stop the sun. Okay, we have to run through the next Gemara. The Gemara says as follows: a city that didn't have any rain fall on it. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, we're staying the klala. I don't want to get into this. We've already touched on it a couple of times. What do you mean? If both of them are for a curse, both of them are for a curse, meaning that in the rain that's happening in one city, it's not happening in the other city. If both of them are for a curse, because as Rashi over here says that it could be that in the city that's raining it's a klala because it's shiyam ta'ala roiv geshamim shemekalkas, that's what it's having too much rain. Again, you go back to the more Bavman Beis, it was mashma that it's either kidney boya or not kidney boya. We said it. If it's kidney boya, ain't by mishum va'atzar. And we asked the question, Rav Chizda, how does Rav Chizda fit with our Mishnah here? We asked that as a question yesterday. Yes. So I still leave with that as a question. Anyhow, over here we're saying L'shein L'klala that if it's raining Alir Achas and Alir Achas is not raining, Rashi, the reason Alir Achas that it's not raining is a klala is pashut, but Alir Achas that it is raining it's a klala. Either you would have assumed because of the fact that the city without the rain, like we said yesterday, right? Why do the surrounding cities have to 2 days ago? Why we said the surrounding cities have to be Misano or Misras, whichever Machlokes Tanakam Kiva, was because they were going to go to the town that has the rain and they're going to buy out all the provisions. There won't be anything left in that town. So that could be one possible why it's a klal, and I asked that as a question. Or as Rashi is saying over here, it's a klal in that town that it's raining because it's raining too much. So if it's raining too much, then it's going to be destroying the crops. And then they won't have enough food to even provide for the other town, let alone for themselves, let alone for the other town. Fine. Now we have a few unbelievable Gemaras about how we want to reread Psukim that would have otherwise seemed terrible. Says the Gemara. And I'm not 100% sure of the connection, other than the fact that it's Amar Yehuda Marav. Right? Otherwise, I don't really see what the connection is exactly. And it's only Rabbi Yehuda Marav in the first one. The rest of them are just Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah, we can bear that in mind as well. But it's the same style as we see from Rav. That's why Rabbi Yehuda is following the same style as Rabbi Yehuda Marav. So Zot the Gemara, the same way Rabbi Yehuda Marav just understand the Klala. We can maybe that's the connection. I never thought of this before. Maybe that's the connection. Because we just said Ushtan the Klala, now we're going to turn around and try to show Amar Yehuda Marav saying things lebracha. Even though it's Pashut L'Klala, they read the simple shot in these psukim, but he's saying it's lebracha. Maybe that's the connection. Okay. Start the Gemara. Very good. Hayisa Yishalayim Lenida Beinayim, right? Shkarek to the Bernstein for letting that pop in. Yeah, so the pasuk tells us in Eicha that Yishalayim was like a nida. Amar Yehuda Marav lebracha. This is a bracha. What do you mean? Yishalayim was like a nida. How is it like a bracha? Kenida mani the Yishalayim have Yishalayim Yishalayim takana. The same way once nida is a nida, she will have it once a takana. So too Yishalayim is one day going to be rebuilt. It's a raya to it, right? This is the Gemara Magas Chav Dalet about Rabbi Kiva going through the thing, and they're all crying. The rabbis, the facts. It says, no, now I see this nevuah is being upheld. So now I know the other nevuah is going to be upheld as well, and Yerushalayim will be rebuilt. Same mamish idea. It's like an almana. This again, not Amar Yehuda Marav. This was reviewed himself. Libracha. What? It's like a woman almana's chayes. Her husband on business is going to come back, so she's like an almana, but she an almana. No. So to Yerushalayim is not an almana. Eventually, Yerushalayim will be rebuilt. I'm going to make you the Jewish people. The Navi says, broken and low class. Amar Yehuda Libracha. One more. It's a bracha. How the Jew is going to be low class, being a bracha. Right? I'm not going to make the Jews into Rishon higher Rashi's mooks and tax collectors, and I'm not going to make them into Gezir Pitei, which is officers. Rashi's stagiaires. So if you look at the more about the Kamal Amad look over there, the Maisa of the state stagiaires came to learn Torah. I can't get into it now. And then we talked about it during the Geras stuff, all that. Fine. Now, also the thing about not appointing the Reish and the Hara, the Muksa, not appointing Jews as tax collectors because they're considered to be too shuffle. Again, the Gemara tells us Mavakam Kufir Gimel over there that you're not able to take stock from a Mukha. Why? Because he's a cheater. Tax collectors are cheaters. So the tax collectors would buy the tax rights from the king, and then they would collect from the people how much they have to get from certain cities or whatever. And then the extras they would keep for themselves. That's why they're considered cheaters. Terrible punishments for people in Muslim. But the Gemara says, but Shmuel says, the Gemara says, yes. And the Gemara qualifies, when we say about being bad at Mukhas, you're not supposed to be, is only a situation where they became Mukhas on their own, meaning they came Mukhas at the power of a gun. They're powerful, so they became their own Mukhas, not on the result of the government. Or, ain't like Kitzvah. The government didn't say, I want to collect 100 gold pieces. The government said, collect whatever you want. and we'll take, whatever you give us. That gives the guy a carte blanche, do whatever he wants. He's going to be an evil person. So those are the situations. But what are we saying over here? The Jews never appointed as muhsin because they're nivzim. Clearly, what we must mean if they're going to take it on their own. So that's obviously not being appointed. So we must be talking about appointments. If we're talking about appointments, then doesn't Shmuel say dina lachus dina? Aren't Jews not appointed? Clearly, there were times that they were appointed. Right? We know the Gemara tells us about Mitzvah pay Gimel and Beis and pay Dalam and Aleph or Shmuel Rabbi Yosi and Reb Shimon that they were appointed policemen. Right? Things happen. It happens. Whether you can work for the IRS or not, it's a whole truth from Moshe. We can't get into it now. The time is running, mamish, unbelievable. All right, so we really, yeah. All right, I may have to stop over here.